Welcome to Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Simply Done Concierge. Every week, folks, we have a to-do list that most of us can't get to because we can't be in two places at once. Mary and her team at Simply Done Concierge can help you with that. So if you will go to simplydoneconcierge.com, fill in the blank there on the question of how can we help you, and Mary and her team will be on it quickly and help you accomplish more and be in two places at once. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Manning. Each week on Triangle BNI, we bring you a local small business success story. If you are not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and the surrounding towns. There are 32 chapters that meet every week, almost 600 members. Our job is to help each other grow their business. And every now and then we reach out to our fellow brethren in the Wilmington region and bring folks, let you meet some folks from there. And we got a good show today, folks. I always like having firsts on the show. Not only is our guest a very good, he can help you with your life insurance, and we're going to talk about that, but he's also the first Hollywood stuntman we've ever had on the show. So we're in line for some good stories. Our local small business success story, John Gilbert with Woodmen Life. John is in the Wilmington Connect chapter. They meet Thursday mornings at 8:45 at the Wrightsville Beach Brewery in Wilmington. John holds the life and disability seat in that chapter. He's also the vice president. John, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. Doing great.
Good. Glad
Thanks
to
for
have you.
having me.
Yep. Glad to have you on the show today, man. Life insurance, anytime we talk insurance, man, do we as consumers, we mess that up. I'm just going to throw some things out there. We either need the state minimum for our auto insurance or our homeowners insurance is not enough. But with life insurance, I just don't think that we give enough time to what impact that can have on not only our lives, but the lives of our loved ones.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think not only that is a lot of agents miss the boat too. In the insurance world of all kinds, especially 30, 40 years ago, and it was much more a door knocking industry. You kind of your agent got in, he wrote your policy, and he got out. And maybe 10 years down the road, you were going, well, what in the world? I know it's life insurance, but what is it? What's it? Is there anything that it won't pay out on? All this stuff. So part of what I do, what I like to do as an agent is educate people as well. I sit with most people that do have life insurance, usually underinsured, and then you kind of sit down and show them the numbers, and they go, whoa, I need more. And you say, yeah, you do.
Yeah, there are a number of insurance people that through BNI that I've met that have schooled me on many people have a policy, but not everybody is properly covered.
Yep.
And that
Yep.
works in life insurance as well, doesn't it?
Yep. 100%. I'd say almost more so with life insurance, right? Because, you more than likely you're just thinking, bury me in a little bit left, right? But that's fine for maybe a 70-year-old or 75-year-old that doesn't have a whole lot of debt. But you're 40 with a young family, enough to bury you, and then maybe a little left over it's not going to cut it, right?
Yeah, and those are the situa because a lot of your clients are in different situations. They may be newly married, they may have had their first child, a divorce, a loss of a loved one, and they're older, stuff like that. Um, but life, because we think life insurance, or a lot of people think, okay, covers the funeral and leave a couple of bucks. But it can be used for many different things, can't it?
Yeah, no, it's one of the coolest financial products in the world. I mean, there's really not anything else like it. Obviously with term, it's pretty cut and dry. You're paying for a set amount of years. That's more like a bill every month. At the end of those 20 or 30 years, however long the term is, the policy usually is done. Now you can convert or extend or those types of things, but from an investment standpoint, whole life is just, I mean, in the depression, it was the only thing that earned, right? In moments like we saw maybe a year or two ago, 401ks going down, whole life cash value insurance was not. It was gaining at 3.5. If it was universal and it was fluctuating based on an S&P 500, depending on what their floor was. Could have been one or two, but it wasn't going backwards like most investments can from time to time.
How do we know if term or whole life is better for, other than talking to you and getting educated? What's the difference, and how do we know which one is best for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a lot of other investments, right? You kind of want to be balanced. There's the Dave Ramsey thought of, hey, invest all your, get life insurance. It's important, but do it all in term, right? Because you can get a lot more for a lot less, and then invest the difference of what a whole life policy would cost you at that face amount. Invest the difference in the stock market or whatever else. And I mean, yeah, over the long haul, there's probably numbers that back Dave. In times like over the last couple of years and other recessions, that mindset wouldn't have worked too well. So I like to see both. I mean, our young families that still have a mortgage, that still have car payments, that still have credit card loans, that have kids that they may want to leave some money to go to college. You want to see a big term. I mean, you want to see $500,000 to $1 million in term. 20 years, 30 years. I always say get the max, right? If you can get 30, if they're offering 30, get 30. Uh, and then a little whole life policy along with it, just depending on that face amount can change depending on your income and what you can allow and put away per month. But again, if you have $1 million term, you don't necessarily need $100,000 whole life policy. If you can't afford it, a 50 would do just fine because that thing's going to grow. It's going to have some cash value built up that you can access potentially. There's a lot of different variables there, but the importance of that is when that term falls off when you're 65, 70. I meet with a lot of clients in their mid to late 60s and their term is a year or two from falling off the books. And they go, I need a whole life policy now. And I say, yeah, you do. It's going to be expensive.
Mm.
A whole life policy 20 years ago would be looking great right now. So honestly, they both have their own uses. I like to see both in a portfolio, especially young people.
In a nutshell, term does what for us if you get a 30-year policy?
Covers you for 30 years.
Okay.
Um, that 30 years is up. Now, again, along the way, most companies, Woodmen Life, you can convert any portion of that term. Say it's a 250 for 30 years. You get to year 28 and you go, you know what? I want 100 of this to stay on the books. You can convert 100 into possibly another smaller term. Now, your age is going to depend on what they're going to give you. At 70 years old, we'll only give out a 10-year term because with the mortality tables, they don't want terms going too far past 84, 85, right? If you've got a 90-year-old that's still got a term policy, you usually don't see that. So at 60 years old, they may give you a 20-year, probably just going to give you about a 15-year term. It's definitely based on the mortality tables, but yeah, at the end of that 30 years, that term insurance is coming to an end.
And then, so once that 30 is done, your recommendation is to go to whole life versus another term, another.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously we all want to outlive that term.
Mm.
I mean, if I'm 40 and I get a 30-year term, I want to live past 70, so the goal there is that, and the expectation is that you will be alive then. So if that's the case, this policy's essentially no longer good. It's good in that 30 years if anything tragic were to happen. But outside of that, and yeah, so the whole life is where that comes in. But again, starting it earlier because it's age related. You start that whole policy a few years earlier, save a lot of money, and you'll have that thing kind of already start to build as that term's coming to an end.
I am a proud member of the Grandparent Club. It is the greatest club ever. I do nothing but help. Um, for those of us that are in this club or getting ready to join the club, what can we do for our grandkids?
Yeah, it's called grandparent gifting. I have a brochure on it. Actually, I give it out. I keep them with me. I give them out. I'll even some of my clients that I've met with that I know they're grandparents and they don't have anything on the books, towards Christmas time, usually around November, I'll send out a flyer. It's a grandparent gifting brochure from Woodman Life that we kind of send out, populates it. Yeah, just buying a policy on the kid, and with these, usually they don't have to be a ton. Usually, I mean, 10,000 is pretty common. 20,000 is pretty common. We have what's called an easy pay, which is for this very reason. It's basically 10, 15, and 20 as far as $1,000. So 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. You can either do it for 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years as far as how long you want to pay on the policy. One of our most common is like a $20,000 10-year pay, which means 10 years of payments, and then it's done, the policy's paid for. And from there, with a life insurance policy, whole life, when it's paid for and there's no longer a premium needed, that death benefit also starts to grow. So a $20,000, a $20,000 policy that was taken out on a 4 or 5, 6-year-old, paid off when they're 15 or 20, by the time they're 50, 60, 70, that 20,000 is going to turn into 35, 40, 45. So
Very
they're
nice. Yeah.
great gifts.
Because we're always looking for those cool gifts. Granted, our grandkids probably think, "Oh, really? That's it? I can't play with
Right.
that." But the parents will appreciate it very much. So,
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I've had a few kids in their early to mid 20s. I try to talk them out of it. I don't ever recommend, but they had 4, 5, 6,000 built up in that policy. Grandma started when they were 2 years old, and they cashed it out. They said that $5,000's worth more to me now than
yeah,
the 10 or whatever was the payout. So
yeah,
we did it.
yeah. All you can do is advise and recommend. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, yeah. So how does someone get into the insurance world? Did you know somebody that was in it? Was that your
Yeah,
connection?
I did. It's kind of odd. I mean, the second profession I've been in, I had a family connection. I kind of like that. It worked out for me the first time around, so I'm going to keep knocking at that door. But my father-in-law sold with Woodmen of the World. Back then, it was Woodmen of the World. They rebranded probably 10 years ago to Woodman Life, but founded in 1890, so third oldest company in the country,
Wow.
and was founded as Woodmen of the World. Fraternal insurance company, which means you're a part of a chapter when you have a policy, which we get out and we do food drives, we do community service projects, we do all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I got in that way. I mean, I think it's one of the easier, it feels like anyways, there's always a new face popping up. So it feels like it is one of the easier outside of just getting the license with the state, going through the courses and whatnot. But they say 8% of life insurance agents make it as a career. So
Wow.
92% that start this job usually end up doing something else. I don't want to necessarily say fail, but they usually
Yeah.
end up doing something else in the next 2 to 5 years down the road. So 8% sticks. It's not a great not a great ratio, but it's a tough business. You've got to be okay with putting in a lot of free work. You got to be okay with doing a lot of work that you're not necessarily getting paid on. You've got to be okay with you're building your name, you're building a business. Luckily for me, having that family connection, it got me kind of a leg up on a few people that maybe starting out. I didn't have any necessarily experience, although hearing the conversations of my father-in-law and whatnot around family time, but not much else outside of that. But it quick started me for sure, and jumping into a county that the company that I'm with doesn't have a rep for, so I'm the guy. So I took
Mhm.
on a bunch of existing clients, and yeah, it's been good.
All right. Can I imagine you're a pretty good test taker as well?
Yeah, I mean, if I care about it, if I care about it. I will say the life one, the first time around, health I got with flying colors. I've had more, because when I feel like you're a little bit more in tune with your health policy,
Mm.
especially with me going to physical therapy and x-rays and all this stuff as much as I was in my past career. I was pretty familiar with how health insurance works. So I aced that test, but I did miss the life test by one, and so I
Ooh.
had to take it again. But I'm a solid test taker. I'm a better teacher, I think, though,
Okay.
than I am a test taker.
And I know you enjoy reading and educating people on stuff, so we've had some good conversations on that. So let's talk about your previous life. You mentioned life insurance and chiropractor visits and health insurance, stuff like that. So for 20 years, you were a stuntman in TV and film.
Yes.
You started Momentum Stunts and still own it?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. All right. You started at the age of 11 under the, as I wrote down, the watchful eye of your uncle.
Yes.
So how does an 11-year-old realize, A, get into it, but B, think this is what I want to keep doing?
Yeah, it's funny. It actually started earlier. 20 years was when I've been making a living at it. I've got pictures of me in diapers jumping off bookshelves in the house. How my uncle won that argument with my mom. I tell you, I would not let my wife's brother do the things with my son that my uncle did. I mean, it worked out. I obviously she was very proud, and I had a great career, but Yeah, a lot of dangerous stuff, and just I was the test dummy really for a long time. I was very athletic. I kind of taught myself how to flip on the ground, flip on trampolines, jump off stuff. I love jumping off of things in the water. There was this lake park we used to go to in Hope Mills, North Carolina, and it had all of these rope swings. It was just this man-made lake, had all these rope swings and these platforms and high dives and all this stuff. And we'd go there 2, 3 times a year, and he just started seeing talent in me for that. He was chasing it and doing it. And so for a long time, I was the test dummy. I was the, hey, I'm going to film something. I want to show a director what this looks like. Jump off this, do this here. We do fight scenes, all sorts of stuff. And then once the baseball dream ended senior year of high school, I realized wasn't the old arm wasn't good enough to go anywhere. And so yeah, I just that year that I graduated, May of 2023, in the fall of 2023, we got the show One Tree Hill. So it's kind
Nice.
of when it really took off for me.
All right, so I have a couple of family questions for you. I want to be. I told my sons who will listen. If they're not listening now, they will listen. That I would be a good dad. They said I should only ask you about your role in Tropic Thunder.
Mm,
Tell me about that movie and what your roles were in that.
yeah. So my by far favorite film that I did, that I even as a watcher, I was sitting in the uh, so we got put up in Hawaii for 3 months. So I fly out to in Kauai at that to the smallest, least inhabited island, most nature there. Staying in this hotel on the coast. And night two, I'm almost finished the script, and I texted my uncle. I was 22 years old. I texted my uncle. I said, "This will be the best thing I ever do." Uh, I'm peaking at 22.
Wow.
I said, "This will be the best thing I ever do. The script is amazing. If we do even half of what's in here, which we will, because I knew the budget for the film and who was involved, Tom and Ben Stiller and all those guys, and they don't do anything cheap. They usually go full bore. So yeah, I doubled Jay Baruchel, who played Kevin Sandusky. He was the nerd with the glasses that read the book and that actually was more serious than the other characters were. Um, it was awesome, man. I mean, Jay was one of the actors that wasn't quite the A-lister, so he was in the hotel with us, all the stunt guys, and a couple of the actors were. Danny McBride was, and a few others. Obviously, Jack and those guys were at different hotels. Ben had a house there at that time, so Ben, and I think Robert Downey did as well. But yeah, we got there about 3 weeks earlier than everybody else did, and we were getting dropped off by helicopter in the middle of the island, all these just locations in the middle of the island, kind of walking through scenes. And Ben Stiller wrote and directed. So he had the viewfinder, his DP was there. And the five of us main stunt guys, we would just walk the scenes. We had sides every day of what scene Ben was going to scope out and look at for lens sizing and just all sorts of stuff. And we basically ran 3/4 of the movie um, every day, in front of Ben Stiller. I mean, reading lines with Ben. He would jump in from time to time just to kind of get the feel for his character and what he wanted to do. But most of the time, he was view finding everything, and his double would run through, his parts for him. Just an awesome experience. A great group of stunt guys. I mean, some of my best friends still today I met on that film. It was just awesome. It was A-list actors. It was an A-list stunt team. I mean, the stunt team's full of stunt award winners and Emmy. We have an Emmy category, and it was just it was awesome. A little starstruck. This kid from the East Coast, little guy getting a shot with the big boys. Because if you weren't in LA doing stunts, you were just kind of a wannabe. I'd had a decent resume already though for a 22-year-old, probably as good as anybody in the country, but it was still new. On location. On an island, right? I mean, the island fever is real. It's cool for a minute, and then you're like, we can't go anywhere if anything happens here. We're stuck. So,
Now, you were
um,
young in the business. We hear actors all the time have to go to tryouts or casting calls. How did this job come available to you?
uh, the way that most jobs don't happen actually. So there's two ways to hustle in the film industry. You go to the set that where the film is shooting. You seek out the stunt coordinator. You've got your headshot. You've got possibly a disc or a zip drive with your action reel and whatnot. And you shake his hand and ask him if he'd like any help. If he's got any pads he needs to clean. If he's got any gear he needs to sort out. Just tell him you're there. Kind of lets him show you professional. The other side is you send that packet off. So for all of the remote location jobs, I would just sit there and go through this publication we got twice a month, and I would just pump out resumes and just I'd have a cover letter, and it was just insert the name of the coordinator kind of thing and send it out to Hawaii. I knew of Brad Martin, but I obviously didn't, knew there's no snowball's chance in Hades, right? I was like, this is just, I'll just do it, right? Because I just wanted to do it. And sure enough, I'm in a clothing store with my now wife, then girlfriend, and LA number calls, and I'm like, I got to take this, So I step out towards the front where I could get signal. I answer it, and the rest is history. He's like, hey man, you want to come to Hawaii in about 2 weeks for 3 months and do a film? And I was like, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you have the right number?
Is that a trick question?
Yeah.
All right. So for those of us, we see the film, but when you are a stunt double, do they shoot the scene with the actor and then they know when to cut? How and where do you jump in for your stunt scene?
Yeah. All different ways. Sometimes when there's, say actor goes to a table and some Vampire Diaries is kind of what comes in my head here because of all of the fire and the destruction in that show. Tables and chairs are broken, there's whatever. We'll shoot that first. They may shoot the actor's coverage kind of leading up to, but they really can't shoot anything after that with the actors until we've destroyed the set and it's looking like what it's supposed to look like. So, but usually don't shoot in order. A lot of times you can usually shoot pre and post stuff with the actors and then kind of bring the stunt guys in at a later time. They usually like to save us for the end of the night, just, for whatever reason. So we're dead tired and we've already been there for 10 hours and we've already eaten. But yeah, it varies, but usually like that. It's actor coverage, get the actors stuff done, and then we'll bring the stunts in.
And you guys, just so many questions here on this. So I was looking at your stunt reel, and I have a couple questions on that too. But one of the scenes, I don't know what movie it was in or what show it was in, but we see the actor, and then we see you getting, I think it was in a mall or somewhere, and somebody forearms you,
Yep.
and then you flip under, and then the next shot is the actor face down on the floor. So you go up and under on the floor, they clean you out, they put the actor back down, and then hit go?
Yep. No, and actually we shot that one kind of out of sequence. Again, that's one of those ones that you're not going to have a whole lot of set pieces messed up around it, right? It's just a floor and an escalator. So we shot all of Jay's stuff. And again, that was the guy that I doubled in Tropic Thunder. That was the very next movie he did, oddly enough. And yeah, just Jay kind of running, right? You see him running and coverage. And then she would go up to clothesline him and then they stop, right? He would start to go back and then cut. And then we shot him kind of, camera down on the floor, boom, him coming in. And that was me just off of camera holding his legs up. He had knee pads on because you couldn't see his knees. And it was, they'd call action and be 3, 2, 1. And I'd drop his feet. And so it would look like he was kind of coming into that motion of him hitting his face first, then everything else. And of course, they finish it. Then, yeah, again, that was towards the end of the day. And then I do the whole thing, right? They usually set up 2, 3 cameras because we don't, for a lot of stunts. That one I could have done multiple times with probably not many injuries, but a lot of big stunts, we try and shoot one, right? You're setting up 4 or 5 cameras because a lot of times you only have one shot by either condition the stuntman's going to be in afterwards or just the reset, right? If there's a lot of set pieces getting broken, the reset, a lot of that stuff can take 30, 45 minutes.
All right, and I can already tell we're going to have you back for a second show because I'm nowhere near far down my list.
All good.
Oh, yeah, big time. I think you're going to go into the category. I don't know if you've watched the show Naked and Afraid, but there's a guy in there, Wes Harper, who's in the BNI here. He's been on 3 times because every time there's more to talk about, so you and I will talk about a bunch. Does the stunt coordinator hire you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That
And
is.
if the actor likes you, can he recommend you for the next show or film he does?
Yep. He can until he runs into a more powerful producer. That's exactly what happened with Jay. We loved each other. We got along great. Kind of cut from the same. He's Canadian actually, but we were both big hockey fans, and big music fans. He's a music creator, so we hit it off well there. So I actually got to do "She's Out of My League," the very next show for him, and then we collaborated. He sent me a bunch of scripts on a bunch of stuff he had coming up that he wanted me to do. One was that movie with him, and it was the Apocalypse movie with him and Seth Rogen, I think. And then the next one was Sorcerer's Apprentice with Nick Cage, and on that show he pitched me and even put me in his contract, but they ran up against Jerry Bruckheimer, who was just really good friends
Yeah.
with the coordinator of that show. I mean, they were a team, and George Rugi was the coordinator. He was just very particular on who he used. You know, he wanted his guys. He had a guy that fit Jay's size, and he went to Jerry and he goes, I'm not going to use this guy. I don't know him. I don't care what he's done. I'm going to use my guys.
Mhm.
And so, depending on the pool of the actor will win that, but you're not winning against Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yeah.
Really.
Is the first thing they look for body size?
Yep. Yep. And then hair would be nice, you know, but there's always wigs for that. It's first and foremost, it's body size. And usually if you're within 5 to 8 pounds, give or take, whether on the plus side or the minus side, and you're within about an inch or two, you're within range. I mean, you can go a little further, right? If it's a big high fall jumping off of a building, you're not going to be able to tell 5 pounds and 2 inches, so you can stretch usually, but um, that's usually the ballpark, an inch or two, and then 5 to 10 pounds, either
Okay.
light or heavy.
And the other show, you were all, my wife was a big fan of Sleepy Hollow, and you were the stunt man for the character, for the actor that played Ichabod Crane, right?
Yep,
How,
Mr. Tom Meissen.
and we're, because I telling her last night when I was doing my, in my research yesterday, and so I was telling her that once I got to your multiple pages to figure out just how much you've done, which is very impressive, we got to thinking about, okay, Sleepy Hollow, because we hadn't seen it in a few years, but we know there was action there, but hadn't seen it in a while. And so I pull up your stunt reel, and there are a couple on there from Sleepy Hollow. It's like, oh yeah, that's right, we forgot about that. So yeah, she was a big fan of the show. She liked that. But
My favorite car day was on that show. The scene where he's riding with the lieutenant in the Jeep,
yep.
and they're just spinning wheels. I mean, they gave me a whole day basically, and they just went, "We're just gonna set cameras up, just do what you want to do." I was like, "Yes,
And
it's
you were
great."
driving the car. You were driving the vehicle, right?
Yep, yep.
Okay. And it just kept spinning around.
Yeah, I did a bunch of stuff. I did 180s. I did slide 90s. I slid over the camera at the end. They actually put a crash box camera in the middle of the road, and I slid and straddled it, and basically turned it black. That was the ending shot to that sequence. But yeah, they just gave me a parking lot, and they just said, "Do whatever you want to do. We'll have cameras set up everywhere." So
Wow. Okay,
yeah,
that's kind of fun, isn't it?
it was great. Oh,
All right.
that's one of my favorite.
Uh,
You don't get banged up, right?
yeah.
You feel like a rock star sliding
Yep.
around. Everybody's like, "Man, that was awesome. Where do you learn to do that?"
And without asking salary and rates and stuff, do you get paid by the day or how
Yes.
many? Okay, by the day.
It's based by the day, but if you're contracted longer, there is a weekly contract, and then that's as high as it goes. There really is no monthly. Now they could negotiate a full film
Mhm.
buyout if they wanted to with you, but the weekly, it's daily and weekly, and ultimately, if you're doing 4 months on a show, it would be a weekly, times 24, I guess.
Okay.
So
On your stunt reel, we saw you being set on fire. What was that in? And we think that's kind of painful, but I'm sensing it's not as bad as we think it is.
not at all. That's one of the ones that is looks much more, and it definitely is. I mean, if you have your entire body, we call it a full burn. There's a partial burn, and then
Mhm.
there's full burn. Partials are when just bits and pieces, maybe just your back,
Yeah.
maybe just an arm, maybe just a chest.
Oh,
But
this
your
was a full
full, your
burn.
front of your legs, the back of your legs, your chest, your back, your arms are all on fire. It's pretty nerve wracking. At that point, you're just trusting that your guys prepped you well, because you're usually freezing cold, because we soak all of the under layers that we put on under the film wardrobe. We soak that in ice, in a fire retardant gel, um, And by that time you get a layer on and you're like shaking, you're ready to get on fire. And then they gel you up on all the other areas that are exposed, and you're trusting those guys. I mean, the fire is really about the team around you for that. I mean, if you don't have a good team, you'll get burned. And fire's hot, so eventually you really only got a limited time, usually 15 to 20 seconds before even a good prep burn. You start to feel the heat on.
And how many times will you shoot that scene?
Fire's repeatable unless the wardrobe gets completely damaged or unless your underlayers, got it. But fire's pretty repeatable, because what we'll do is, again, you wardrobe under fire, you can't tell if was damaged or is damaged. So, you probably run through 2 or 3 burns with that same wardrobe on. Eventually you'll burn the wardrobe off. You won't have anything left except for your underlayers, but it's repeatable. It's one of those ones that is definitely repeatable. You kind of just go off to the side after the shot. They look at it, decide if they need to go again. In the meantime, your guys are kind of re-prepping you to go again, which is another 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're ready to light.
So at some time in your career, you are building a very successful career. Did you stop and think, do I have enough life insurance?
I actually didn't stop and think that. Luckily, I was young enough to get with a financial advisor pretty early on because I was doing well, making some good money, and that's how he just goes, dude, why don't you have life insurance? I don't know. Probably should. I mean, this is what I do. He goes, no, you absolutely should. This is what you do. So the 2 guys I've had in my life for financial advisors have both, they wanted to see that life insurance number be at a certain amount first before they really took any money and invested it anywhere else. They said, you need this first.
And
So,
you are your regular health insurance is covered by the Actors Guild?
yep, we have Screen Actors Guild health insurance.
So would you have been on strike if you were still doing films while they were
Yeah,
on strike? Okay.
yeah, yeah. And technically, I mean, again, it's really not an industry you have to retire from.
Mm.
I mean, I'm still getting calls once every couple weeks. I just got a call a couple weeks ago asking me if I wanted to come get my butt beat in a bar fight for 2 days down in Atlanta, and I just said nope. I said those are the days I'm done with. I said if you
Okay.
want to call me, you call me to slide a car, and I will be there for an hour, and I slide a car up to the mark, and then I'm done. I'll probably step in and do that for you. But so yeah, all my buddies were on strike, and
Yep.
it stinks because it's just something that I don't think SAG's going to win. AI
Yep.
is
Yep.
is the next, right?
Uh,
When you can replace insurance policies that cost films arm and a leg to do dangerous stuff, and AI becomes cheaper, we're
yeah.
done. Our industry's done.
Yeah. And I'm with you on that. And that's a whole nother conversation to have, but I'm 100% with you on that. The other scene that really jumped out at my wife and myself was you were at the beginning of the scene, you had connected, I guess, connected 2 bolts together or plugs together. And then the next thing we know, we see you falling into a pool.
Yep.
What was that from?
That was a film called Scary Movie 5. It was that spoof series on Scream, right, with Officer Doofy and it's just a bunch of crazy characters. That was the 5th. Oddly enough, I did Scary Movie 5, and then 2 years ago I did Scream 5. So I did the spoof. I did the 5th version of the spoof of the 5th version of Scream. Pretty cool how that came full circle. But he's trying to. This guy had a lot of crazy Pratt stuff. That was a fun film for me because I just got to show off kind of my physical abilities that you don't really get to train very much. But that was just 2 shots, right? The first shot is I'm standing there. The shoes aren't really on my feet. They're kind of just, my heels are just outside. And I'm on what's called a ratchet. It's a big hydraulic cylinder. Goes up to a pick point, usually off of a crane or a lull arm. And then we've got a pulley up there. It's hooked to me. 3, 2, 1, boom, do that. Pulls me up out of frame, probably 15, 16 feet. I'm just suspended there out of frame. They call cut. They lower me back down. That shot gets done. We move to the backyard to the pool. Similar deal. They put the crane arm over the pool. They put me on that system. They lift me up out of the shot, right? And then I'm hanging there. And then 3, 2, 1, boom, belly flop into the pool.
Is there something you haven't jumped off of that you always wanted to, but it just never happened?
No, not really. I'm not So everybody asks me, who's the greatest stuntman? I hope I'm not stealing a thunder
No,
there.
go ahead.
Okay, it's Tom Cruise,
Mm.
because he gets to do more than any of us get to do. He's a millionaire who was an adrenaline junkie before acting, and he is, I mean, Mission Impossible, all these crazy movies, they're so he can scratch his adrenaline junkie itch. He is still a skydiver and a mountain climber, all this stuff. They don't let him do it as much in his free time, right? Because he can't. But so he does it in his movies,
Yeah.
and they don't say no because he is the money. He's the guy. So his stunt double tests everything, but his stunt double rarely ever shoots anything on film for Tom, because he just gets to do all this crazy stuff. I had stuff, and then the kids came along, and then I kind of, there was stuff that I would have said no to. I didn't really have to, which was good, but I really enjoy jumping off of like bridges into water. That was one of the first stunts I ever did, doubling two kids in a movie. They were just playing around, jumping, doing flips, and I can really flip and twist from up high. So anything, even into an airbag, but anything up high, 20, 50 stories, I love to do, because I can kind of show off that ability of me.
Did you ever do any gymnastics or anything like that growing up, or you just kind of found out you're pretty athletic?
Yeah, I mean, self-taught. Now they call it free running, right? Where it's not actually like collegiate gymnastics where you have pretty form. In fact, we've had a lot of gymnasts come in and try to bridge and get into stunts, and we tell them, "You're too pretty, man. Like, you need to dirty your stuff up. When you're getting thrown around, your toes aren't pointed, your arms aren't straight in the air. You know what I mean? Like, you need to dirty your technique up." So for me, it was perfect, because my technique was already dirty and raw, anyways, because I taught myself how to spin and flip and twist. So it was already kind of ugly. I mean, a gymnast would have probably looked at me tumbling and been like, "You need some work." But it worked perfect for film.
Now, so I'm looking through your IMDb credits, and they're gonna get into a couple industry things. Just explain what those are. You had a number of them that were listed as uncredited.
Hmm.
What does that mean?
That just means for the role that I listed on IMDb, like utility soldier,
Mm.
utility car work. Utility just means I didn't double an actor. I played myself getting,
Ah,
you know, shoved aside or wrecking the car or whatever. There is no distinct, you're almost an extra that's doing stunts. Now,
okay.
we're obviously still paid the same daily contract and everything, but there's no real role. So usually you'll see that. Because IMDb will go through the credits of the film to vet what you've put there. And if utility car guy isn't in there, which 9 times out of 10 it's not, that goes in as uncredited.
Okay. And then you've been listed as stunt double, stunt performer, stunt coordinator, stunt driver. What's it? Let's start with the difference between stunt double and stunt performer. Did you just explain that to me?
Ish. Stunt double means I definitely doubled an actor, um, specifically. And usually I've got those guys, their names in there as well. Stunt performer means I did a wide variety of things on the film. Means I maybe played a utility character.
Mm.
I might have also doubled a guy for a day. I may have driven a little bit of a car work. And if I did enough of quite a few things, I won't just put stunt driver, or I won't just put stunt double this actor. I'll put stunt performer. That just means I did multiple aspects of stunts within the film.
And then stunt coordinator. Have
Yep.
you done that very often?
Yeah, I've got a good bit of stunt coordinating credits, probably 15, 16, 18. And a lot of it was just covering for my uncle. He would have multiple shows running, and the big day, he'd have a big thing going on at Vampire Diaries, and he'd have just two actors, what we call slap and tickle, right? Just slapping and tickling each other. And so I'd go just make sure that they didn't hit each other in the face or get too rough. And so you're working with actors. I had a few things on my own that I actually got on my own that I submitted for, and they gave it to me, or they went with me. Usually smaller stuff. Had a couple commercials. Just never really wanted to go that route. It's very saw what it did to my uncle for 30 years. I mean, it's stressful. I like to perform because it's on me, and I
Mm.
want it to be on me. It's you're sitting there watching from the sidelines something you orchestrated and have rehearsed and have gone over. But if that kid just brain farts and he's not out of the way of the car when the car comes through, his life's changed, and
Oh,
that's on you. sadly. So I just, it's never really something that I had aspirations for. I would do it if it was open and I was available because it was a job and money and building a resume, but never really had a passion for that. Plus, you're dealing with the big wigs and the producers and the meetings, and it feels more like an office job.
How appreciated are you by the actors that you're doing the stunts for?
Some of them a lot, and some of them speak out. Some of the big ones, I know The Rock's really vocal. I know, um, oh gosh, John Wick. Keanu Reeves is very
Yep.
vocal. Tom's even vocal. I know Ben Stiller's been real vocal of like, give the stunt guys an Oscar category. Give them more. Give them more. They do so much. They put their bodies on the line. Um, but the average day player that's coming up, I've worked with a good bit of hot shot teenagers in these TV shows. That's been a lot of my resume is these teenage kids, and they may not really care about you too much. I've run into a few later in life, and we've had much better conversations. But at the time, it was like they were hot headed and stunt double. Like, what's he here for? I'm an active guy, and they're like, well, you might be, but we're not letting you do this, and so he's going to do it. And they're just kind of like, okay, so.
All right. So, okay, you just said something there that got me thinking. So, if you have to jump off of a bridge, let's say it's 20 feet into the water, I mean, to you, that's nothing. Sometimes they won't let the actor do it just because they might get hurt.
Yeah,
Okay.
a classic example. Now, if it's easy stuff, if it's something to say where they're shooting the wide, where you can see the bridge, you can see the distance, boom, body goes over. That's going to be a stuntman. But what they'll do is they'll break it down and they'll probably build a platform if they want to actually see the actor hitting or if they want to see his face, and he'll jump from a lower platform. Build up something 6, 8 feet off the water just to get him out of frame. Then boom, he jumps in. But yeah, just the risk, we were doing something on One Tree Hill, scene where a car goes over. They had a couple cars go over in the water and actors go in after them. And we were on stage. They built it on Soundstage 10, which was the new underground tank. And so we'd set it all up, but the water was only about 4 feet deep, but they built the bridge, and the bridge to the water was probably only like 8 feet. It was just one of those, low lying underpasses, kind of a creek or whatever. And they just wanted me to vault it, one hand vault, my feet don't even touch, and boom, I'm in. And the actor was very, very athletic and could do it because we were practicing on some sawhorses off to the side. He was dressed ready to do it. They just said, hey, let's shoot a test with John because the water's not very deep, and I basically have to ball up into a tight ball when I hit the water to make it look like I went under deep. And I broke my toe on that stunt. Vaulted in, tightened up in a ball while I came in. Obviously, I couldn't really tighten up before entering because then they would go, why is that guy in a cannonball position? So I had to kind of keep position until I got underwater. Well, as soon as I tucked, my both my toes went straight in, and I guess I was more on my left side, so that foot got caught under my butt, which just went straight to the ground, and the toe just bent all the way up. And yeah, that one stunk. But I popped up, finished the shot, popped up, and was like, he's not doing it. I just broke my toe. So
I can assume that probably wasn't your worst injury.
no, but I'll be honest with you, to this day, it probably nags me as much or more than any other. My neck stinks. I've got some pinched nerve issues here and there. Some days will be great, but days where I'm just misaligned a little bit because I've thrown my neck around in all areas for 20 years, that those vertebrae are just not happy with movement and play anymore. So, but that big toe, like, I'll feel it. I'll just go and try and make a move and leave off that foot, and it'll go, well, nope, you broke me 20 years ago, and this still hurts. Because again, you don't rehab those sorts of things very well. I mean, I was back to work the next day on the show. I just, they gave me a little boot, and they said, kind of just got to immobilize it for 3 to 4 weeks, and then it just heals on its own. But I wasn't savvy with the PT at 21 years old, 22 years old. So I just kind of let it heal on its own, and it didn't.
Yeah.
So.
And probably at that age, you figure, well, if I'm taking a few days off, maybe they replace me totally.
Yeah, no, you never want to take days. You never want to give them the chance to say somebody else in the stunt
Yep.
world. I mean, it's why you said yes to every phone call that you could say yes to, because you said no, that guy may never call you back. You
Yep.
may just remember the only time he called you, he said no.
Yeah, and I believe people have suffered from that as well and wish they hadn't. But John, this has been awesome. I loved having you on the show. We will have you back on again because I didn't get to. You were in Jungle Cruise, which is a family favorite. You were on 91 episodes of Vampire Diaries. You were in Black Adam, Suicide Squad, and more. So we got plenty to talk about. But let's a tip today for those that either have life insurance or don't. What's kind of the first thing they need to look for or look at?
Yeah, just sit down and kind of look at your coverage. That's the face amount or the death benefit or whatever, and just make sure that you don't even really need the sheet. We have an easy sheet that I always leave people and I say, just fill this out because it gives you an idea to look. I even did it with my stuff. And you just have your few main debts on there and then possibly anything you want to leave extra, like a school fund or whatever. And yeah, you look at that amount that you've totaled up, and then you look at your policy, and if you're not even close, the policy's not even close by under, then you probably need to up it. If it's in the ballpark, you're probably good. You know, I mean, say if you've totaled up 500,000 of coverage right now, and possibly some of that is a little bit of income replacement, some of that is school fund, and you've got a $400,000 term policy and maybe another small one. I probably wouldn't advise you on a whole lot unless you just wanted to try and make a little money grow. But yeah, it's just looking at what you have, looking at your household expenses from a real debt standpoint, not like utility bills or whatever. But if I were to pass away, what would I want spouse to be able to, or whoever's burying me, to have to pay off? You should have that in your face amount. That should be at least where you start.
Yeah, and make sure I say this right. Our life insurance is not for us. It's for the people we love, so they're
Yep.
taken care of after we
Yep.
pass, correct?
I say that in my commercials usually. There's two things I'll always say. I say everyone needs life insurance and everyone can afford it. And then at the end I'll say life insurance is for the living, not the deceased.
Good.
The dead don't do anything with the money. It's
Yep.
it's us left behind that need to go on without our standard of living changing much.
Yep. All right, well,
Ideally.
folks, we've been putting John's phone number on the screen here during the show. Even if you have a question, give him a call. He'll help you. He loves educating people. He's a reader. He's a learner. He's an educator. So you'll be in good hands. But just make sure you have the right stuff. And John, love the show. We will have you back on because there's much more to talk about.
Gladly.
This was wonderful. I had a blast, and my boys will thank you. I'll at least be a good dad for a half hour, for at least an hour now that they watch the show. So we appreciate it, and we will see everybody next time on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com and DeltaForce.net.